If you're looking for a brisket that has an incredible sauce, is super tender, almost falls apart, and is easy to make, you've come to the right place. Just stick around and I'll walk you through it and you'll learn how to make one yourself. Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. So, brisket. What could be better than a delicious brisket for a holiday table, a Friday night meal, or really any night? Because it is easy to make, yet it feels really luxurious and indulgent, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to present at a table. So I'm going to teach you how to make a really easy and delicious brisket. You will end up with the most tender piece of meat. It will really just almost fall apart. It's that tender and delicious. And that sauce, that sauce is spoonable and spectacular and will go great over anything. But I'm going to be adding some baby carrots and some mini gold potatoes, the bite-sized ones, into this sauce as the brisket cooks. So when you pull it out, you have a complete meal. You have your protein, you have a carb, and you have a vegetable. So really you need nothing more. But this brisket is perfect for any time of the year. You can actually even make this on Passover with one minor modification, which I'll explain in the video. Or of course, it's perfect for Rosh Hashanah. It's perfect for any time, honestly. You don't need to wait for a special occasion. It's that good. So I am super excited to teach you how to make it. So let's not wait another second and let's get started. For today's recipe, you will need 3 pounds of brisket, 3/4 teaspoon of salt plus another 3/4 teaspoon separate, a half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, 3/4 teaspoon of onion powder, 3/4 teaspoon paprika. Now, if you're not preparing this recipe for Passover, you will use 2 tablespoons of unbleached all-purpose flour. But of course, if you're going to prepare your brisket for Passover, you will just omit that. You'll also need 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, plus 2 more tablespoons separate, 3 yellow onions, medium-sized is fine, 5 cloves of garlic, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 24 ounces of bite-sized gold potatoes. You want the waxy kind of potatoes. 1 pound or 16 ounces of baby carrots, 2 cups or 16 ounces of your favorite red wine. I'm going to be using Cabernet Sauvignon, but you could pretty much use any red wine, and you could even use white wine if you wanted to. It also works perfectly when making a brisket. And you'll need 32 ounces of vegetable broth, 4 tablespoons of date syrup, also known as Ceylon, and some chopped fresh parsley for garnishing. You will also need some tongs, a couple of cutting boards, a spoon, a serving fork, a wooden spatula or spoon, a chef's knife, and a serrated knife for cutting the brisket, some measuring spoons, some oven mitts, and a wet measuring cup. You'll also need 2 large plates and a heavy pot with a lid, such as a Dutch oven. And finally, you'll need some aluminum foil. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. So you'll start first with your onions and your garlic. You want 5 garlic cloves, and I like to slice those instead of mincing them. And then you want to cut your onions quite thin. I take off both ends, I cut my onion in half, and then I slice nice and thin to have these half moon shapes. Then you want to unwrap your brisket. You want to pat it dry well on both sides. And then you're just going to place it on a large plate and we're going to start seasoning. So what I like to do is measure out my seasonings, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding half of the seasoning to the top side and then the other half of that seasoning to the bottom. So I started with my salt, my pepper, and then I'm going to be adding my garlic powder, my onion powder, my paprika, And then I'm just gonna massage those spices in, and I've saved the other half of my spices for the other side. And then I'm coming in, this is 2 tablespoons of unbleached all-purpose flour. So I'm gonna sprinkle on half of it, 1 tablespoon on this side, and then I'm gonna massage that into this side of the meat. And then I'm going to repeat the process on the other side with the spices and the flour. So you may ask, why the flour? So when we brown the meat, the flour also browns up a little bit and it creates these bits at the bottom of the pan, and that is going to help thicken up our sauce just a bit. It's just going to give it that smooth, wonderful texture that we look for in that brisket gravy. So now you bring over your heavy pot and place it on your stove and add 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil and turn your heat on to medium. Allow the pan to get hot, and then carefully with the use of tongs, we're going to bring our meat over into the pan, and we are going to allow one side to get some color. And then of course what we're going to do is we're going to use our tongs once again, and we're going to flip our meat over, and we're going to allow the other side to develop some color. Color is flavor, and as I said, we're creating those little bits at the bottom of the pan that also are going to provide tons of flavor to our sauce. So now would be a great time to preheat your oven. We're going to be braising this brisket at 300 degrees, so make sure you have a rack placed in the center and plenty of room. Now, we're going to go back to our meat, and it is developing a beautiful slight crust and gorgeous golden color, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stand my meat up also on its sides, because I really want every single piece of the surface to just get a touch of that hot contact with the pan, a touch of that caramelization, and it's just really going to add just incredible flavor to our dish. So now this is looking beautiful. It's got that gorgeous golden color, and I'm just going to carefully remove it onto a large plate, and then I'm going to cover that plate well with aluminum foil, because of course I don't want my meat drying out. And then I'm going to bring over those beautifully thinly sliced onions, and I'm going to add them right into my pot, and I'm going to add another 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil on top. And then we're just going to move the onions around, and notice I am using tongs that are not metal because I don't want to scratch the bottom of my Dutch oven, but you could use your wooden spatula instead at this moment, whatever you want. Then I'm adding in those sliced garlic cloves right into the middle, and see, I'm going back and forth between my spatula and my tongs because my tongs have some of that yumminess stuck to them, so I want to make sure to get that in too. I don't want to waste any flavor. And now I'm adding my 2 tablespoons of tomato paste right into the center. I want it to have some contact with the hot pan. And then you're just going to want to stir that right into the onions. Notice we're developing beautiful color too in the process. So now I brought my tongs back over because now I am going to be adding in some broth, and that's going to really help me get all of that yummy goodness off of my tongs. So I'm just going to bring over my vegetable broth, and I'm going to add it all in. So why vegetable broth? Because it brings a depth of flavor. It's made with carrots and onions and all kinds of different veggies that just really provide depth of flavor. But if you prefer a beef broth, that's fine. Some people like to use a chicken broth. That's fine too. This is your brisket at the end of the day. So make it however you want. I'm recommending vegetable broth, but go with whichever one you prefer. So now I'm getting all of that yumminess that's stuck to the pan and to my tongs, and I'm integrating it into this delicious broth, which is going to be our delicious gravy. And then to finish it off, I'm going to pour in 2 cups of my Cabernet Sauvignon, or whatever wine it is you're using, and then I'm going to stir that in. Just look at the gorgeous color of this sauce right now. This gravy is going to be so tasty, and add to that the meat that's going to slowly cook in it. You can just imagine. And I'm using my wooden spatula to make sure I get all of those yummy bits from the bottom of the pan, and I'm integrating them right in. So now I'm adding in my 4 tablespoons of date syrup.
So if you usually don't keep date syrup on hand, I highly recommend you get your hands on some. You can of course use some brown sugar instead, but this is such a healthy option and it is so absolutely delicious. So now I'm adding in a whole pound, 16 ounces of baby carrots, and I'm just gonna stir those right in. And then remember our brisket, the star of the show. We haven't forgotten our brisket. I'm just gonna come in, uncover it, and then very carefully, I'm gonna add it into this beautiful sauce full of onions and carrots and just such incredible flavor. And I'm just gonna make sure to get that right in. And then of course, any juices that may have been released onto the plate, you wanna add those in too. And then you wanna cut any of the potatoes that are a bit large, you wanna cut those in half and you wanna sprinkle your potatoes with 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And then we're gonna add those in. So notice we only added 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt when we seasoned our meat, because then we went ahead and also seasoned our potatoes. And of course, we don't wanna over salt our dish. So now, you just make sure you press those in, get them kind of submerged a little bit in that sauce. And this is looking beautiful. It's just bubbling ever so slightly because we've kept it at medium heat. We're gonna put our lid on and now we're gonna turn off our stove because now we're gonna transfer our brisket into the oven onto a center rack and we're gonna set a timer for 2.5 hours. So our brisket is gonna cook for 2.5 hours, then we're gonna bring it out of the oven. I'm just gonna take a peek because I wanna show you how beautiful it is looking already, but it's not done. Look at how gorgeous and bubbly, beautiful it looks. So we're gonna leave our lid on. Don't be tempted to leave it uncovered and admire it 1 full hour before you slice it. You wanna leave your lid on because we want this to cool down, to come to room temperature. We don't want it hot because we want all of those flavors to be infused into the meat. And if you pull it out too quickly and don't let it cool down, then you're gonna lose all that juiciness that has really been absorbed into the meat, and we do not want to do that. So I'm very carefully removing just the meat. I left the onions, potatoes, and carrots behind. I placed the meat on a cutting board and look at how gorgeous that meat looks. It's got hardly any fat. So see the direction of the grain? We want to cut in an opposite direction. So kind of perpendicular to the grain, against the grain. If the grain is going one way, then you want to cut against that grain, not with the grain. And it makes a huge difference because when you go to eat the meat and serve the meat, it'll be just absolutely tender and you could almost pull that meat apart and you see those fibers. It's almost like an accordion effect. It's just absolutely amazing and very classic of a well-cut brisket. So yeah, I need to take a little bite because look at this meat is practically falling apart. So absolutely beautiful. And I've cut it into perfect slices. But it's not done because now we want to take these beautiful slices, we want to place them back into that gorgeous sauce. But before I do, I'm just going to take a taste with that sauce because, yeah, why not? Oh, yeah. It's going to be so good. So what we do is we carefully replace those slices back into our sauce, and then we're going to allow this to cook just a little bit longer so that all of those pieces have a chance to come into contact with that beautiful sauce that we've created, that gorgeous gravy, and it just gets all absorbed and it's just going to be perfect. But we're not going to cover it this time. We're going to grab it just as is, place it back on a center rack, and cook it for 30 minutes more in the sauce, now sliced. And after 30 minutes, look at how gorgeous our brisket is looking and smelling. I wish you could smell this. It smells so crazy good. Look at the color of that sauce and those potatoes and carrots that have been cooking in there from the beginning. Just imagine all the flavor that they have absorbed. They're absolutely yummy. So what I'm doing is I removed my meat and placed it onto a serving platter. You can serve it directly from your Dutch oven if you'd like, but I removed my meat. I spooned over the onions and the garlic, and then I just placed all of those carrots and those mini potatoes all the way around the meat to just kind of let the meat be the star of the show in the center. And then I'm sprinkling on top with just a little bit of parsley for color, just to serve it and just have a gorgeous presentation. But as I said, you can serve this directly from your Dutch oven if you'd like. You don't need to get fancy. Believe me, once you serve it on the plate, everyone's just going to want to eat it because it's that good. So I am going in to get myself a piece or two. Yeah, this piece is kind of small. It's from the end, so I'm going to take another little, maybe I'll take that little end piece to just kind of complement this little piece because this is my dinner after all. And yeah, I'm going to take a few of those carrots, some of those baby gold potatoes, and I'm telling you, cooking this type of potato, that waxy potato, it doesn't fall apart. You can cook it in the sauce from the beginning and it's absolutely gorgeous and it will absorb so much flavor. They're going to be so absolutely yummy. And look at that golden sauce that we're pouring on top. I mean, really, that gravy is just absolutely phenomenal and is spoonable and you could practically drink it. It's that tasty. Imagine that over some Sephardic fideo fritos. I'm going to attach that video to this because that sauce on top of my fideo fritos would be amazing if you're looking for something different to make. And look at how tender and juicy that meat looks. We cooked it for a few hours at 300 and sliced it, put it back in. Gorgeous, delicious. All the flavors had a chance to marry and it's absolutely perfect and tender. And wait till you see me really cut into this. You are going to see just how tender this meat is. It is incredible. You practically don't need a knife because the meat is just going to come apart. See, just pulling it a touch and the meat has come apart. My mouth is salivating. I cannot wait to eat this. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It's beautiful, it's tender, it's delicious. It's got all those yummy flavors that have come together. That delicious sauce, those onions, the garlic, it's just perfection. Mmm. So crazy good. And even the potatoes, those waxy potatoes, you see how they stay together? You don't have to peel them. They're just so convenient and so perfect. And they're perfect for that sauce. So yummy. Mmm. Mm-mm-mm. So delicious and so tender. And even the carrots, they're just so soft. They keep their shape though, but they're perfectly tender when you eat them. They're not overcooked because we cook this at 300 degrees and because of the type of potato and carrot we're using, it just stays absolutely perfect. They just retain their shape, but they absorb all that flavor. Just look at how, see how that meat is kind of stretchy when you pull it? That's a perfectly cut slice of brisket. We cut it against the grain and it's just practically falling apart. It's so, so yummy. As you can see, I can't stop eating it. So good.
So how crazy delicious does this brisket look? Did I not tell you this was going to be a delicious brisket? And how tender the meat practically falls apart. If you grab one of those pieces and you pull it, you see that it's got that classic, almost like accordion stretch to it. It's perfect. Of course, cutting it against the grain makes it incredible. And that infusion of wine and broth and just those spices that we've added make a delicious gravy. Mm-mm-mm. I already had a piece and my mouth is watering. I'm ready to have another one. Trust me, it is so, so tasty. Nah, better yet, don't trust me. You're going to have to try to make this recipe yourself. And of course, if you've enjoyed today's recipe, don't forget to like it, to write me a sweet comment, to share the recipe with your friends. All of those actions really help my channel grow. So thank you so much. I appreciate so much when you do that. You take one of my videos and put it on your Facebook page for your friends to see it. It helps me grow. It exposes me to new people that may not know about Sally, that girl in the kitchen. So I really do appreciate when you do that. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to Sally That Girl in the Kitchen here on YouTube, stop what you're doing, go over, subscribe, touch that little notification bell, and that way you'll be notified every time I put up a new recipe video, which I do all of the time. And don't forget to explore. I have everything broken down by playlists. You're going to find appetizers, main dishes, side dishes, anything you could want. Sephardic Turkish dishes, which are my specialty, broken down by playlists, and there are hundreds of videos out. So you could definitely get inspired to make other things just by exploring all of the videos that are already out. So thank you so much for doing that too. And if you're not already following me on social media, you can find me as Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and on Pinterest. And you can find me as Sally That Girl FL on X, Snapchat, and on TikTok. And of course, I also have an Amazon shop where I feature a lot of the products that I use in my video, and sometimes the tools, the utensils that I use. You can find them there. So be sure to explore that. That's amazon.com/shop/Sally That Girl in the Kitchen. But I have a link to everything on the banner of my YouTube page or on my Sally That Girl in the Kitchen Facebook or Instagram pages. You'll find my link tree that has all of the different links to all of my different shops and all of my different social media pages. So you can be sure to follow me absolutely everywhere because I wouldn't want you to miss anything. Sometimes I share a little something here or there or a sneak peek of what I'm going to be doing here on YouTube on my social media pages. So you definitely want to be following me there too. So once again, I just want to take a moment to thank you so, so much for watching this. If you're watching before a holiday, happy holiday. And if you're watching any time of the year, just happy cooking. Enjoy it. I hope you love the brisket, and I'll see you next time. Sally That Girl in the Kitchen.